Hello, my loves. We have just entered into the Yule energy portal, that winter portal of liminal space where we are feeling all kinds of ways. If you're resonating with that phrase, feeling all kinds of ways, then my deepest hope is that this little chat today helps you feel reassured, realigned, and grounded where you are, with some insight into how the F to move forward and get the most out of this energy portal. So, as I am recording this and dropping all of my cards on the floor, today is 12/12. It is the day of the Hanged Man. And the hangman in the tarot represents this suspended state of consciousness where we are changing our perspective, where things kind of get flipped on their heads and we really begin to see things in a new way. And naturally, it is also the card before the death card, which symbolizes, death, rebirth, shedding, all those beautiful things, which ironically, tomorrow is Friday the 13th, the death card day. Now, why is this important as we approach the energy of the full moon in Gemini on Sunday? There is this building energy this week and bridging us into the kind of ending of 2024 here, where we're being asked to change our perspective on who we think we are and really begin to shift into the embodiment of who we have become this year. What I mean by that is our collective energetic signature or lesson of the year was the Strength card lesson, which it really is all about internal strength, but also the strength in which you are connected to yourself, to the divine, and learning to pull that strength from within, not just from yourself, but from your source. And there's this funny thing that happens when we are building strength, where things happen where we are then required to call upon our strength, right? So for many people, this year 2024 has been a somewhat challenging year. A lot of people have made some really big decisions. A lot of people have experienced losses. Really, these events happen every year. It has nothing to do with 2024. But for those of us, wherever we are in our journey, there's been this collective focus on building internal strength. And as you have embraced those lessons and lived through everything that you have lived through this year and continue to live through, there have been internal shifts and internal changes. And as we move into 2025, into the collective year of the hermit, which is really focused on going deep within and getting to know yourself, there is this call for our final full moon of the year to recognize yourself for who you have become, for everything that you have triumphed over this year, and to really set yourself up in a foundational place of, I am not who I used to be, and I'm moving forward as we begin to wrap up the calendar year and plan for the next calendar year to live as this new person within that year. And how we do that is by embodying who we have become, which really means feeling in your body who you are now and how you get to operate now that you have these new internal strength, skills, and energetic blueprints, to lean on. And this can be quite challenging because as we evolve and move into new states of being, those old states of being, the old energetic signatures, identities, stories that we tell about ourselves, things that we believe about ourselves, they don't just go away. They're still there, especially if these are things that we have been had as part of our operating system for years and years and years and years. So as the moon comes to its fullness in Gemini, and we'll talk about that means in a second, there is this invitation to take advantage of that death energy, where we are then allowing those energetic signatures of remembrance of who we used to be fall away. And we do that by actively and consciously taking time to feel within our body what those things used to feel like and how we feel now. Because we have to train our energetic system to remember these new feelings, how we feel now that we understand and know these things, so that when these things come up, we don't anticipate or consciously remember things being the old way, because then we kind of fall into those old patterns. And I'll give you an example. But moving back to the full moon in Gemini energy, Gemini in the tarot is the Lover's card. And Gemini is all about marrying the different parts of yourself together, coming into a state of union and wholeness. Now, yes, in the Lover's card, we can see this as the representation of two separate people coming together. But when we're looking at it through the lens of the self, this is about all parts of yourself coming together into wholeness. And the way that we do that over and over again throughout the year is by doing shadow work. And I know that I've gotten several requests for videos on shadow work, so I promise that is coming in terms of the content that's coming to the channel in the next couple of months. But there is this acceptance of all of these pieces of yourself that is coming together. And anything that is holding you away from that union internally, so any attachments, old beliefs, old stories, ways that you're just kind of really shitty to yourself, all of those things are going to feel like they're heightened and exacerbated during this time if you have not spent time dealing with them throughout the year. And even if you have, like, this stuff always comes back around. Like, we're not just healed one day, like we're always constantly working on it. So you may find that these themes come up and are very, very challenging for you at this time. And I want to reassure you that that does not mean that you are off track or that you have not gained any of the strength that you've been working on this year. In fact, this is a great indication that you are ready to shed those old things, not by getting angry with yourself or belittling yourself or shaming yourself or any XYZ for feeling these feelings, but instead recognizing the feelings, giving compassion to your past self, pouring love into who you used to be and how you used to be, because that person got you to where you are right this moment. And just because you in this moment are choosing to go off on your new path and bring yourself into a deeper state of wholeness with this Gemini full moon and walk forward into 2025 as this internally embodied version of yourself, that you that's making that decision right now could not be in existence without the past versions of you. I want to be really clear about this, because this is where we actually do ourselves a disservice and fracture ourselves and pieces of our soul even further. So if we're talking about coming together back into wholeness and union, we must do so from a place of unconditional love for all of these parts of ourselves. And if we're going through a death cycle and we are trying to separate ourselves from a place of disgust or self-hatred or loathing or shame, then what we're actually doing when we shed those pieces because we're trying to eradicate them is we actually fracture ourselves even further. So instead of bringing ourselves into a state of wholeness through that shedding, we actually pull ourselves further apart. And that's why it feels really shitty. And you go around the same cycle again and you're like, I thought I already worked on this, because you kind of pulled it apart, you know? So the point here is, as we shed and release, we do so from a place of love. And as this piece of us goes through the death portal and dies, nothing ever really dies, right? But as it dies, it changes form. Okay? So as this quote unquote old version of you, as you pour love into it, as you thank it, as you bring it back and integrate it into yourself, you're not getting rid of it. You are changing it. You are kind of deeming it inactive at the moment. It's still a part of you as a whole, but that version of you no longer has the driver's seat. It now becomes part of your foundation. Okay? And the part of you that's stepping forward into embodiment becomes the front-facing person, the person in the driver's seat of who you are in this moment. And that version of you will continue into the future. Now, let's go back to that example that I was going to give you, because this all sounds really, really good, right? We all want to be that new, shiny, embodied, sexy, rich version of ourselves, right? Whatever that is for you. But what does this look like on a practical level? Like, now that we've got all the quote unquote buzzwords out of the way, now that we understand the energetics of it, the importance of it, how we're working with that, what's an example of WTF this actually looks like, right? One of the things that I worked on in 2024 for myself was becoming more social. So stepping out of this idea that I had this crippling social anxiety, and that anytime I opened my mouth, that it was going to be seen as less than, as not really adding quality to the conversations that I was having, to the rooms that I was in. This was entangled in a lot of different things and required me to do a hell of a lot of healing work over 2024, work that I am still doing. The old me would have, for instance, stepped into, say, a room where I was going to meet someone new, and I would have felt crushing anxiety. I would have been so nervous that I probably would have been nauseous hours before I even went. I would have built up this giant story in my head about how everything was going to go. I would have had some kind of interaction where I felt super just like out of my element, like I didn't belong there, hyper aware of everything that I was doing, anticipating people's reactions. And then I would have gone home and I would have overthought every single conversation that I ever had while I was there. I would have anticipated what they thought about me, and I would have been like, I can't do that again. And I would have had to like take a week to recover, right? That's the old version of me. I know that that version of me still exists because I've lived it, right? Now we get on to further in the year where I've done that strength work, and I'm putting myself in these situations. I find myself in a totally different state. I moved across the country. I'm about to start a brand new job where I am like the go-to person in charge. And I am having to put myself in these situations of meeting new people and dealing with customer confrontations and like all of these things, right? And part of me remembers that old version of me. And before I engage in these social interactions, I anticipate feeling like I used to before I did the work this year. And then I get into the situation and I remember who I am now. And I can notice that a lot of those nerves are no longer present in the way that they used to be. And then after I realize, oh yeah, like I am this new embodied version of myself that I'm putting forward now. I have new skill sets. Like I have new baseline energetics when I enter into these situations. But because I haven't fully come into the embodiment of that person who did all that work and is now doing this in this new way, before I go into these moments, I'm remembering and anticipating the experience to be like it used to be. My expectation of my energetic well-being, of my mental well-being, of my physical well-being, and how this is going to be affected by said event, I'm remembering and anticipating what that used to be like and projecting that onto how things are going to go. So the work here in my example would be for me to spend some time doing journaling work, doing energetic visualization, doing meditation and energy retrieval, perhaps doing some card work if that feels aligned, around integrating that old version of me and beginning to take that identity and kind of turn it off or make it inactive and reintegrate it back into who I am with love and compassion. And as I'm doing that death ritual around that piece of myself, calling forth that new version of me that I've already built, right? She already lives inside of me. I've already experienced her within these interactions. And now it's a matter of saying, okay, system, energetic system that runs my body, right? This old version of me is no longer in the driver's seat. And we're now going to default to this new version. And I'm going to help you remember who you are by putting you in situations where you can experience this new version of yourself that you have built up. I'm putting the embodied version of myself in the driver's seat. Now, you may be coming up with the question of like, okay, that's great. You're in this bridging process. How do we become more embodied? How do we become, come into, there we go, a state where we feel in our body like we are this new version? And part of it is this releasing and calling forth. And then the rest of it, honestly, is just living into it, of remembering that you are this new version of yourself and inviting that version of yourself to the table over and over and over and over again. And reminding that version of you, yes, you were built on this old version, but you are now wiser and stronger and smarter than you were before. And we get to continue to evolve from this new baseline. right? You become more embodied by recognizing that this version of you is the new baseline. So you're actually moving the marker along. You're passing the baton. You're changing seats. It's like musical chairs. Except you are consciously putting that person in the seat. And we become more embodied by consciously operating at that new baseline and building upon it just as we did before. Because there is no end point. There is no, I was this person and now I am this person. It's all just one blending mess together of like constant evolution. You will always be a tiny fraction of who you used to be, and you will always be becoming more of who you are. And somewhere along the way, all of these things bleed together into this beautiful mess that we call our self-identity, we call who we are. Okay? So going back to the energy of right now, I just gave you a ton of homework for like the next week, right? If you're watching this way past the Gemini full moon and you're still resonating with this energy, please go ahead and do this for yourself. This is not like a timed thing. Like, it doesn't mean that after this particular window of time that you can't work on these things, that you can't do these things. You can do this internal work at any time. This just happens to be the call of the work that is coming up right now collectively. But always meet yourself where you're at. Always take time to check in with yourself and to see where you're at and not rush yourself in the process and not belittle yourself or be down on yourself for being in a different place. We're all in a different place and yet somehow in the same place collectively. It's wild. That's a conversation for a different time. But as we, as a collective, move from the Strength card year 2024 into the Hermit year of 2025, we're going through these mile markers of like these energetic windows, right? Where it's 12/12, we're changing perspective, hence this video right here. Tomorrow is Friday the 13th, 12/13, 13 being the death card in the tarot, day of death, in a metaphorical sense. Then we have on Saturday or Sunday, don't quote me on that, the full moon in Gemini. Then in the following weeks, we have the Yule season. And Yule is this mark of this liminal gateway. It is a time where we are kind of suspended between winter and spring. Yes, around Yule, there's also the winter solstice where the days begin to become longer, right? It's the shortest day of the year, it's the longest night of the year. And the sun and the daylight hours begin to lengthen after that. However, I don't know about you, but it's kind of the mark of winter. At least where I come from I was in Maine. Now I'm in Texas, so it'll be interesting to see how that happens. But it was a mark of descent into the winter months. So yes, the light was returning, but there was this intense slumber period of like everything's kind of dead, right? And we're waiting for spring to come. And during this time, there is this very intense energy of pausing and holding the two opposite energies of endings and beginnings together and not really being in either one. There is this energy or this tendency to go all out on all of these dreams and try to make them all happen in January. But that's not what December and January into February before we get to Imbolc is about. It's about the sacred pause. It's about holding the dark and the light together. It's about doing the internal work, about embodying who you have become over the year, reflecting on all of those beautiful things, giving yourself your flowers, as they say, or your trophy or whatever you want to do, building yourself up, while also recognizing how different you are. And from that place of who you are now, from your new embodied driver's seat, sitting down with yourself and saying, WTF do you want? What do you want? Not what's on your wish list, not what do you want to buy next year. What do you want your life to look and feel like? How do you want to be embodied next year? I'm looking forward to digging into this more with you in the content to come. I've given you a lot of food for thought today, so I'm going to leave that there. But I'm excited to see where we all go together. I'm excited to talk more to you about the energy of the hermit that's coming in 2025, especially since I was in my own personal hermit year this year. So I got a beautiful little taste of what's to come. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. But if you're looking to sink deeper into this energy, to do some rituals for yourself, to perhaps pull some cards, and to just meet up with some like-minded people from the comfort of your own home during Yule. I say meet up with some people, but my meetups are always like, they're pre-recorded. So you take them at your own pace. But we're sharing energetic space, even though we're not like together. Anywho, what I'm trying to say is if you are interested, we are having a Yule-inspired ritual celebration this winter. The sign up for that will be down below. If you are so inclined, up until the 19th of December, this is a pay what you can experience. So no matter what your situation is right now, if you would like to come join me and attend and just be in this energy because you liked my talk and you want some more of this and you want some practical journal prompts and card pulls and things to do for yourself, definitely come join us. We would love to have you. As I said, it's pay what you can. So no matter what you have to give, I'm super grateful that you're here, and I'm elated to have you in this beautiful sacred exchange as we enter into the Yule season. I'll be talking more in that Yule gathering about the actual energetics of the season. We'll go deeper into that, like kind of I touched upon a little bit at the end of this video here. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments down below. I love talking to you, hearing from you, hearing what resonated with you. How did your experience of the strength card this year go? I would love to know. Did you have a banger of a year like I did? All the things. And for those of you who will be joining us for the Yule ritual celebration, I'm so excited. I will see you there. With all that being said, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I'll see you again really soon. Take care, my loves.